What's going on, Dragons? Happy Friday, and welcome to episode 10 of the ERCast. That's right, two handfuls of delicious Commander content for you. I'm your co-host, Cory, and with me this week is none other than your other co-host, Cole. We both just got back from some traveling. Cole, what'd you do? What'd you see? Where'd you go?
Well, hey everybody, I'm back from Pennsylvania. We did a little road trip up to see some music at Elements Music Festival. It was a long trip up there and an even longer trip back home, but I'm well rested and ready for a good cast.
Was it a literal road trip? Like you drove all the way up to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we drove all the way up there. Five people packed in one truck, and it was a tight squeeze, but we made it work. It was about a 24-hour trip up there, including all of our stops and shopping at Walmart and that sort of thing. But we
Hmm.
were able to squeeze the trip into 19 hours on the way back. So I'd say we optimized our route a little bit.
Well, if your trip was anything like mine, so I just got back from Indianapolis at Gen Con, but if your trip was anything like mine, the weather was a lot nicer up north than it was coming back to Florida for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Lovely temperature, not too much rain, and actually we did see a meteor shower, so we got to see some shooting stars.
Oh wow, that's really a music venue. It was an outdoor music festival, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, all camping.
Oh, there you go. Camping with a meteor shower and music. That's hey, that's a good way to spend the end of summer, I guess. But this week, you guys, we're gonna be talking about Gen Con. Like I said, I just got back from it. Well, as a recording, I've been back for about a week, but I just got back in the sense of us recording. A lot of thoughts. Now we're gonna save the magic portion. I'll tell you guys all right up front. We're gonna save the magic portion for a split episode this week. So our plan is to have this one out on Wednesday, another one out on Friday that's going to be all magic, just because there was so much content that, like, I mean, we probably could make 5 episodes out of what we want to talk about, but we're going to try and tailor it down to just the highlights. But before we get into that conversation, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor today. So this week we are working with Proxy Forge. If you guys, I'm sure you're aware, there were some fires recently in Maui, which devastated a large portion of the island, including some historical towns, a lot of storefronts, and a lot of people's livelihoods. And of course, unfortunately, a good amount of people lost their life in those as well. But we're working with Proxy Forge. They're making a 10-pack of proxies that we're going to be giving one away today. We're going to give one away on Friday. But all proceeds, if you're interested, do go to Game Odyssey, which is a local family-owned LGS that unfortunately was lost to the fires in Maui. So we're going to be giving some money to their family, kind of helping them rebuild. But if you are interested in checking them out, you can go to proxyforge.com. Any of the stuff with the Maui rebuild kind of project, you'll see right on their homepage, it says Maui Strong. Those need to be pre-ordered in by 8/20, just so they can get them off to the printers, all that good stuff. But if you're listening to the cast, you can use promo code ERCAST, all one word, URCAST. You'll get 20% off at checkout. And if you use the code, the pod, Cole and I are going to go ahead and match a portion of those proceeds to all you dragons that use the code. So don't feel like you're saving 20% and they're losing 20%. We're going to go ahead and take care of that in for you. But we're also going to be giving away 2 sets. So if you're interested in any kind of support for this project, check out theproxyforge.com. And of course, thank them for sponsoring today's episode, sponsoring Friday's episode, and really for coming up with the idea to help out a good cause.
It's worth stating that they're really beautiful cards, and I think they're all just wonderful art, and it's a really beautiful cause.
Yeah, and they're great cards. Tyler, the brains behind the Proxy Forge, when he was coming up with ideas, I actually gave him some of these suggestions. But they're all very, very tropical themes. So you've got Volcanic Island, you're going to get a tropical island, you're going to get a Birds of Paradise, all kinds of just really great. There's a Soul Ring that looks very beautiful. There's a Taiga that looks very beautiful. All kinds of just really nice options, really great artwork. Very vibrant, I'll say that, as far as colors.
And they'll slot pretty easily into your decks. They're definitely ubiquitous cards.
Yeah, and trust me, saving 20% off and getting a Volcanic Island proxied is a lot cheaper than getting a Volcanic Island unproxied.
That's right.
um, but Gen Con, it was a lot. It was a big trip. It was probably our first big trip for my wife Sharon and I in about a year or so. As far as like not a weekend at Command Fest or something like that, but something where we actually spent a whole week away, got on a plane, and left the area.
Well, I got a
But
question for you, Corey.
sure.
What is Gen Con?
I'm glad you asked. Um, so Gen Con, for those of you guys who don't know, is pretty ubiquitous in the gaming space. So it started all the way back in the 60s, way back when, and it's been running and getting bigger every single year ever since, other than like a small hiatus with COVID. But it was actually founded by Gary Gygax, who was the founder creator of D&D. But he started it before D&D. He was big into wargaming. So he started a local convention in his local area of Lake Geneva, Minnesota, all the way back in 1968. And it's been going strong ever since. It's moved to Milwaukee for a while, but it's been in Indianapolis for about the last 20 or so years. But it focuses on games, board games, card games, mini games. We saw like people fighting robots there. We saw people building card towers. We saw people building model trains. So basically, if you're into nerd culture or board games or things of that nature, this is the place to be. Started very small, but I believe when we went, they announced it was the record most attendance they've had in almost 50 years. And they had
Wow.
70,000 people showing up.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it was. So we met one of the magic artists when we were walking around, and I guess it was like his third or fourth time attending. It was Mark Bear, who's you guys might know him from Smothering Tithe.
Okay.
Well, we were kind of talking to him for half a second, and he described it best, which was, if you've stood in front of a firing hose, this is how this convention plays out. Like there's just you're forced in with the flow, and you keep moving or you're going to get trampled. That's how many people are in this collective area.
Is it a big convention center?
You know what? It was not a big convention center, but what they did very well, and this was like the first time I've ever been to Gen Con. This was the first time I've seen something kind of like this. Was their convention center is actually connected by catwalks to multiple hotels in the area. So not only did you have an expo floor on the convention center, you also had a gaming area in the convention center. Plus, they had like various events and kind of booths and things like that at like five different hotels that all connected internal through like internal walkways. They also ripped up the field at the Lucas Oil Stadium, which is the Indianapolis Colts like football stadium. They had the whole field pulled back, and the entire floor of the stadium was card gaming.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so there was, I want to say they said it was 1.5 million square feet of game space or floor space. But everywhere you look there was people just so I'm trying to think. I think the best way to kind of walk through this one, because this was more head spinning than the Command Fest episode we talked about maybe like a month or two ago.
Sure.
Um, I think we got to go back to the Command Fest way, which was take it day by day, right? First off, traveling to Indianapolis really weird. Not in the sense that like it was a bad travel experience, but I went with my wife Sharon, myself, and then obviously 69,000 plus other strangers. Um, but my wife Sharon is telling me at the airport, okay, you're stuck in the middle seats. She kind of bragged to me that because she made the travel arrangements and I made the hotel arrangements, that she selected herself a window seat, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Uh huh.
Every plane we got on, she had the window seat in the one row that did not have a window.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but what was kind of interesting was so we left from Sarasota, which is obviously like a smaller local airport as opposed to Tampa International.
Right.
So we left from there, went to Atlanta, which is obviously a larger hub, and you knew the second you got to the gate in Atlanta that you were in the right spot because there were people there with board games on the floor at the Atlanta International Airport rolling dice.
Uh-huh.
So either you were at like the worst Gamblers Anonymous location or you were about to get on a flight going to Gen Con. It's just that's the way it was.
A flight full of gamers.
You could smell the lack of deodorant just emanating.
That's a misconception. Right, right.
Yeah, that was a misconception. I will say that. I did meet quite many lovely people, and they were all very hygienic. I will say that. Um, by the way, I don't know. Have you? You're probably more versed in the ride share universe than I am.
Let the listeners know I was an Uber driver for a period of several years.
Okay. So I want you to know, on behalf of your former colleagues, the Uber drivers in Indianapolis are about the weirdest people I've met.
How so?
It's like, okay, so you think when you go to Gen Con, it's gonna be full of nerds, right? And
Yeah.
those would be maybe the most socially awkward individuals you're gonna encounter all weekend.
Right.
No, the Uber drivers. I pulled the worst luck of Uber drivers. So we get picked up from the airport, right? It's a like an older gentleman. He clearly has like some mobility issues. He's got an oxygen tank on him. Whatever. People have their own life. He's out here trying to make a living. Sure. We load our stuff in the back of his SUV, and we're getting ready to go to our hotel. Now, obviously, our only knowledge of this hotel is what we've seen online, the fact that we booked it through the convention to get like a discounted price, all that kind of stuff. But other than that, it looks like a reputable location.
Okay.
And it's sort of like behind the airport. So if you haven't done Gen Con before, what they do is they give you like a hotel lottery. Um, so you sort of like if you pull a lucky straw, you can book the hotels that are closest to the convention center, and then if you're lower down on the totem pole, you kind of get what's left. So we got sort of a what's left hotel. No, still a good hotel. It's probably about 15 minutes from the convention center, so it wasn't too bad. So we're in this gentleman's SUV going to the hotel. He's asking us a little bit about like, oh, what are you in town for? Oh, obviously he knows Gen Con because it's such a big event for the city
Sure.
each year. And when we bring up where our hotel is, he goes, oh yeah, by the way, I've heard a rumor that when dignitaries like visit town or somebody important's going to be around downtown, something like that, they love to load your hotel up with all the homeless people.
Okay.
Which, again, great marketing source for the first human being I've met in Indianapolis. Um, so we're like, well, great. I haven't seen the hotel yet, but you're telling me it's just like rampant, with homeless people, the homeless, and he's like, oh yeah, they like to pack them in the ballrooms there, or occasionally they let them go into the rooms and take showers and stuff, just to get them off the streets so the the city looks cleaner while like the president's in town.
Wow.
So already what I want to hear, right? Then he goes, oh, by the way, uh, so we land. This is pseudo tangent, but kind of relevant. So we land around noonish. So we're like noonish on Wednesday, the day before the convention.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, by the way, you're probably going to be my last ride of the day because I only work until I get to $100. That's my goal each day. And then I like to cut off and have the weekend or the afternoon at home,
Well,
which seems fair enough because he was clearly like up there in age, probably retired, doing this as like a side gig, that kind of thing.
yeah.
And then he goes, because one of the things I really love is my grandson. Or he said he had like seven grandkids, but he goes, well, my grandson lives with me because after his dad left town, I became his father figure. And then we get a 10-minute conversation about like his deadbeat son that just left town and how he's had to be the father figure in this kid's life. It was a lot of like personal information to unpack there.
Yeah, you got pretty deep into this Uber driver's portfolio.
Yeah, now mind you, that's the first Uber driver. Then, as the weekend progresses, it doesn't get better. By the way, so we had. I'll summarize them for you like this. I had an Uber driver who, the one day it happened to rain up there, he got on the highway with all four windows and his sunroof completely rolled down,
Oh
just
no.
blasting us with rain at 70 miles an hour. Then, then we had the one who the first day of the convention, we had one that almost ran over the pedestrians in the crosswalk and then started yelling at them for being in the street, even though the crosswalk is in the street.
It sounds like he was trying to get you where you needed to be on time.
I mean, he did get me right by the doors. I will give him that. Then we tried to make as little eye contact as humanly possible with the individuals he almost ran over. So, it's like a win loss kind of situation. Yeah, so it was an interesting stretch. I also got one that lectured me about our beloved governor, as he's listening to like hard right polititalk on his radio.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, it was a lot to unpack. Oh, and then the last gentleman who actually dropped us off at the airport, I think, was the piece de resistance. Uh, he's like 4 in the morning because we're trying to catch a 6 a.m. flight.
Yeah.
As we're on the ride, he goes, "Hey, just so you know, I'm only an Uber driver, so I can network with people. I'm really a charter fishing boat captain who also." Do you like jazz? Because I've partnered up with one of the foremost, greatest jazz saxophonists in the modern world, and I partner him up with chefs so that we go to Miami and South Beach and we throw these lavish parties for like 20,000 people with DJs, jazz music, and catering.
This guy's a triple threat.
Yeah. So then he learns that we're from Tampa. And then he proceeds to ask both my wife and I to give him our contact information so that he can get in touch with us because he then is now planning to come down to Tampa and get into the real estate market and would love our insight on the various neighborhoods.
Well, did you end up giving it over?
I did not. I told him very politely I wouldn't forget, and then I hastily grabbed my bags and fled into the safety of the airport.
Well, it sounds like you had some interesting ride shares. I hope that wasn't indicative of the rest of your weekend.
Um, so It was not. I think once you made it into the convention center, it was like, oh, they're nerdy, but they're normal, you know. So the convention center itself, we walked in. So first off, we did get dropped off by like the door. It just happened to be the back door. So we happened to walk into the convention center and we're like wandering upstream because he dropped us off towards like a rear entrance that you could come and go. It wasn't like we broke into anything,
Uh-huh.
but it was just like, huh, everybody's heading this way towards me. Why am I going upstream? And it was because we were behind the expo hall and they were all coming through the main entrance.
Okay.
Um, but it was interesting. So day one, probably the most exhausting day, I think, for both of us. Um, we started off by going to like a opening ceremony. So that's a nice opening ceremony. It was hosted by Peter Adkinson, um, who I don't know. Cole, are you familiar with who Peter is? Or
I'm unfamiliar.
okay, so he's one of those people that's like obscure in name, but if you look at where we're currently at with Magic and where we're at with like D and different things, kind of in our nerd sphere, so to speak,
Yeah.
he's had a big role in kind of lining the dominoes to where we are today. So Peter Adkinson, back in the '90s, is actually one of the gentlemen that founded Wizards of the Coast.
Okay.
So he founded Wizards of the Coast. He became CEO and president of Wizards of the Coast. And I believe his other two partners kind of like semi-retired, or they just weren't as actively involved. But he's kind of revered-ish in the space because he bought Magic and published Magic. He bought D&D when it was about to go bankrupt and kind of resurrected Dungeons and Dragons in the late '90s.
So he's pretty prolific in the scene.
Yeah, so he's prolific, I would say, definitely in like the business scene of it all. Well, he in like the early 2000s, he sold Wizards of the Coast to Hasbro, and as part of him selling it, he actually purchased the rights to Gen Con. So he became like semi-retired, but he walks around Gen Con now like the celebrity of Gen Con, essentially.
So did you get a chance to see him?
Yeah, so he was running an opening ceremony. I didn't see him in the sense that like I spoke with him because obviously we're in like a super packed room. But he was extremely lively and a little weird. So we saw him twice. We saw him one. Well, I think we saw him a couple more times. We saw him at the opening ceremony, and then we saw him as a guest on a like D&D live stream charity thing that we were in the audience for. But he had a lot of personality for someone who's maybe like 5'2". Like there was a lot crammed into this guy. He was very exuberant.
He kind of sounds like a
But
Stan Lee type.
yeah, so when he was in the D&D aspect, even if it wasn't like his turn in the initiative order, he was just screaming like, "I attack! I'm the barbarian! I attack! I'll kill it! I'll slay all the monsters!"
And
Like
being
he
that
was
he's
just
the king.
very, yeah, he was just very over the top. Um, but it was interesting because the opening ceremony was him and a like techno pop kind of band. They were all wearing like mesh masks.
Did they look cool or was it like a little weird?
Um, so it was weird in the sense that I had no idea who they were. But I guess they're called Magic Sword, or the Magic Sword. Um, it was weird in the sense that like I had no clue who they were. They clearly had some fans there because there were people that were like crickets throughout the whole opening ceremony, where they had a couple MCs and stuff kind of come out and make weird banter about like make sure you stay hydrated and sleep and take a shower. Ha 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 ha. So there was a lot of like humor that fell very flat, but when the band came out, there was definitely a group that got extremely excited.
You being part of that group.
I was more excited when Genevieve, the Red Dragon mascot, came out and joined them on stage. That's what got me excited. I was like,
Oh,
"Whoa, whoa, whoa. 40-year-old man in a costume. Tell me more."
that's cool.
So we did that. Then we went into the main convention hall, which I think I want to say there was like 1,600 booths or something in there. And
Wow.
that's not like an exaggeration. Like they were numbered in rows and the whole 9 yards. Um, a lot of people. I felt very bad for Sharon because, as you know, Sharon is a little shorter. So in those kind of crowds, she got like a lot of elbows, a lot of pushing, nudging, shoving.
And so I'm sure you were able to get kind of the scope of the place while Sharon was having to follow your tall whim.
Yeah, I was wearing a backpack, so Sharon was definitely doing a good job of holding on, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
um, but there was everything. Like I said, there was train demos, the whole 9 yards. Um, the one thing we did though, and I'll say like day one, the first thing we did, 100% big mistake. We walked in and there's a huge booth that's like Toys for Tots. Okay, the charity that runs every Christmas pretty much.
Sure.
They had a promo where okay, you buy a bag and they're gonna give you games. Like you buy a bag, they've got a setup of so many like small games, so many medium-sized board games, and then like so many mystery games that they're gonna give you one. Um, so we're like, hey, it's a great cause. All the games listed we don't have. It'll be a lot of them look really fun. They great art, like everything that would entice you to kind of get a game off a shelf.
Yeah.
Like it looks really nice, it's pretty, vibrant, all that stuff. Um, Now, mind you, this is like 9 a.m. 9 a.m. the first morning. The convention runs each day until like midnight, essentially, but I don't think they actually kick you out until like 2 in the morning.
Okay.
Um, we get this canvas bag. Get I want to say like 5 or 6 games. It was about $60-$70, which when you factor in each one of these games was selling for about $20. You save money, but it goes to a good cause. But
But now you're
now
having
I've
to
got
hold on to 6 or 7
yeah,
games the whole day.
yeah. So the whole day, imagine me with a canvas tote bag. Look, it's about the size of a pizza delivery bag
Uh huh.
with like 35 pounds of just board games in it. And you can imagine how I was like, hey, from the neck up, I'm having a blast. From the shoulders down is pure hell. This is
Oh, I
just
can
I'm
imagine.
getting I'm getting shoved by people. I'm lugging around like a cinder block all freaking day. um so we planned that day we so you can sign up for various events. We had planned to go to like 4 events in that day. We went to 2 of them. We went to the opening ceremony. We skipped like the 3 things we had in between. One because we were just so tired from like walking around. It was very head spinning.
Sure.
Um, and then also because when we were looking at the events, we kind of picked things based off of topics that looked really interesting. So there was one that was like, hey, intro into being a game master. There was one that was like how to deal with exhaustion in a creative career and handling burnout, like different
Wow.
things that kind of appeal to different one parts of us. But they were spread across these various hotels, so it would have been like, hey, we're gonna sit at the Hyatt, which is on the easternmost side of this whole complex. Then you're gonna get out, and you've got 10 minutes to make it like 4 football fields and 8 staircases to the Marriott, which is on the complete opposite end. So
So,
we kind of made the decision early on to just take it easy.
yeah. Especially when you're lugging around all that cardboard.
Yeah, that was misery. But the other event we did go to that day, and I was this was like there was two events on my calendar that I was like, I don't care if you got to drag me to them. I'll like physically, I pass out and somebody has to like haul me over there.
Uh huh.
One was Magic at 30, which we're going to talk about in the next episode because it was a lot. And one was the AMA by Gavin Verhey.
Okay.
So Gavin, I mean, I'm sure you know who Gavin is. If you guys are listening, I'm sure you do as well. But Gavin is one of the designers at Wizards of the Coast, and then he also, on his spare time, is a content creator. So he does like Good Morning Magic on YouTube. He does like speaking segments with some pro like creators and also with pro tour members. So I was like, I'm gonna go visit this AMA. That was very interesting. They asked him a lot of weird-ish questions, and I will say a lot of his answers were essentially "time will tell" or "never say never."
Non-answers.
Yeah, and he would joke about it. So they would ask him like, "Will what are the odds that we'll see a set that comes back that has partner mechanics on it?" And he'll say, and he was like, "Well, I'm not going to say it'll never happen, but I'm also you can't really tell you if it's in the works or not. So stay tuned." But other than that, I mean, he seemed very cheery. There was not very like juicy information that came out of that. It was just a lot of like, tell me what you're working on at Wizards. I'm working on cards. Ha ha. But it was very interesting. We did get we so we and the maybe like 50 people that were in there were the first people to get the Lotus Petal like 30th anniversary card. So they released a promo because this was actually the 30th anniversary of Magic the Gathering was that weekend, and Magic the Gathering got its start at Gen Con way back in the 90s. So it was sort of like Magic's coming home event.
And I'm not gonna say I'm jealous, but it is a pretty beautiful lotus petal that you got.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of offers because I posted pictures online and people were like, "Oh, you got that though. Where's it at? You want to trade?" I had somebody offer to trade me that for an Atali, like, and not like new Atali either, but like old Atali pops up in a bunch of precons.
Bizarre.
Yeah, and I was like, no, no, thank you. That's so that was day one. We got back to the hotel like 11 o'clock at night. Um, Dragged ourselves into the hotel like restaurant basically, ate and then promptly passed out. There were some bits of LobbyCon, but nobody was playing Magic. They were all playing the One Piece card game.
Okay.
I will say there was not a homeless person in sight at my hotel, but there was a good bit of construction. But so we did that. Then Friday was. I think each day we played it a little smarter. Like we're like, all right, I'm hauling less junk. I'm getting lighter games. Um, Friday we go in and it's a little bit of a easier day, right? So Thursday is everybody rushes in, gets the games, and like gets the hot games, gets out, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Saturday is all the locals show up. They've been working. They're like, whatever, I'm gonna show up Saturday, see what's going on. And they show up with their families and stuff like that. So Friday is like a lull in between the two.
Okay.
So Friday we figure, okay, well let's go check out Artist Alley and kind of see what's going on. Artist Alley, like I've never been to a Magic Con proper. I don't think you have either.
No.
But we've been to Command Fest, and usually Command Fest brings like 4 to 5 artists, I would say.
Yeah, varying, but I did notice that a couple of the artists that attended Gen Con were some of the same artists that were at our Command Fest down here in Florida. Like, it seems like they almost do tours.
Yeah, so from our our last command fest, Ben Hill was there, Elena Danner was there, John Stanko was there, but yeah, I think they were. I want to say they were all there from the ones I remember. But I don't know why, but I walked up to Jason Engel. I think was the first person,
Okay.
and I was just kind of like, oh, this Jason Engel does great art. He seems like a really chill kind of dude. I just want to talk to him for a second, right? But I don't want to talk to him and then kind of like leave. Because it would be, yeah, I think it would be rude, right? And my wife also was very much like, well, if you're going to talk to these people, you need to at least buy something because otherwise it's kind of like you're wasting their time. Like they're there for a reason.
Did they have long lines?
Um, one specific person had a long line, and that was Elena Danner.
Okay.
Everybody else was pretty accessible. So I walk up to Jason Engel. We're talking for a minute. Um, and he's got like a nice little tray of tokens that he's done. So and a lot of them are like generic kind of stuff, like zombies and treasure and just things you see on a lot of decks.
Sure.
So I snag a zombie because I'm like, hey, what are the odds, or what am I gonna? What are the odds I'm gonna see this at other locations? They're pretty high. So I figure, what in the moment I don't have a zombie deck, and I go, I'm gonna spend today getting as many 2/2 zombie tokens signed by as many artists as humanly possible, and that was essentially my Friday like morning. Um,
Well, how many did you end up getting?
I have gotten about 10.
Wow.
And I will say it was what struck me as weird, and I kind of liked it. I liked it, but it was also weird. Was almost none of them wanted to charge me for it.
Okay. That's kind of
Like I
strange.
would go, yeah, and I kept having to insist, like, no, come on, man. Like Jason Engel didn't want to charge me a dime, and I was like, come on, man, you got to pay for the booth somehow, right? And he goes, all right, fine, give me $1. All right, here's $1. Um, Tyler Walpole, who I'll throw names out there and I'll try and remember what they did, so to clue you guys in. But I know he's known for doing a secret lair of like D&D cartoon set,
Okay.
and he's done stuff for Critical Role and stuff like that. He didn't want to charge me. Now him, I can kind of understand because I talked to him a little bit online, so we have somewhat of a rapport there. Um, but I was like, come on, somebody's got to take my money around this place. So I got like 10 of them signed for I maybe like $12 all in.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good start to a zombie deck.
It is. And then we randomly go to one of the booths, one of the card booths, and we grab two sets of Commander Masters. And Sharon opens up Ghoul Caller Gissa. So I go, well, hey, great. I needed a commander for this. Now I've got the commander. I've got the tokens. Um,
Well, and you've been talking about
what?
wanting a mono deck, so that
Yeah,
Caller
now
Gisa
and
looks pretty
now I've
good.
got it. Yeah. Um, I will say, okay, one quick story, and then we'll run to break from this. One thing that I thought was just funny out of this whole artist alley bit. So I go to Ben Hill, right? Love Ben Hill. I met him at Command Fest Orlando. I believe you talked to him a little bit when we were there as well.
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Yeah, super chill guy, right? He's sitting there. He's kind of like doodling. I don't want to like mislabel her. I don't know if it's like his assistant, his girlfriend, whoever the lady that runs the booth with him typically.
Sure.
She's there as well. Now, I walk up to him and he looks at me for a second and I go, "Oh, hey, it's nice seeing you guys here." And he remembered that we had met at Orlando, that we met at Command Fest back in June, which
Wow.
was, yeah, first off, super cool, right? Because how many people you think will walk past them?
Right.
Um, so I asked him like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm probably about 5 zombies in at this point. do you have any zombie tokens? And he's like, no, unfortunately I don't. I'm trying to get tokens, but I'm still in like the design process of what kind of art I want to put on them.
Uh huh.
So I go, hey, well, I don't want to be like rude because it seems weird. Would you be okay if I got a token? Would you be okay signing it? Now I know it's a little weird because it could be somebody else's art, and that might be crossing a line.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what. If you go and find a zombie token and you get permission from the artist, then I'll sign it. Like, he's like, yeah, it's gonna feel weird to me, but I'll do it as long as they're chill with it, right?
So who'd you
So
find that was up for the challenge?
yeah, so I found Scott Murphy, who was like a couple booths down, right? Um, I get two of them because I was like, okay, I'm gonna have him sign one, and then I'm gonna like drop the question on him, right?
Yeah.
So I get him to sign one. I go, hey man, if I buy a second one, would you let me go get it signed by Ben Hill? I know it's a little weird, right? Having somebody else sign your art. So you can see him kind of like processing it.
Uh
He's
huh.
got like his, he's darting around. He's like, I don't know how much I trust you, And he didn't say that, but you could feel the tension.
Right.
So eventually he just kind of like, he goes, all right, you know what? I know Ben. I've met him before. It's somebody that we have a rapport with. It's not like you're asking me to bring it over to a complete stranger, whatever. Now, I will say, he did make me pay for the token. I think just because I threw him off a little bit. But I go back to Ben. He signs it, no problem. We talk for a minute, wish him well, because he's actually from Florida as well. So, kind of wish him well on the drive back and all that good stuff.
Uh huh.
And then he proceeds to tell me how this is going to be like his favorite tale of all of Gen Con because he can now go rub in this other artist's face that he got to sign his art.
Yeah. Okay.
So I go back and I show him. Yeah, like I go back afterwards. I go back to Scott. I show him, hey, look, thank you again. Look, he did sign it for me. And he's like, oh, I didn't think he was going to do it. Now I've got to go sign all the art at his booth. Now I've got a goal this weekend to go over to his booth when he's not looking and like deface his art with my signature.
Uh huh.
And so now I have a Scott Murphy art, Ben Hill signed 2/2 zombie token, and I think it's like my favorite of them all.
It's extremely unique, I'll tell you that. I don't know if anybody else in the whole world has a zombie token signed by an alternate artist.
It is unique. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. When we hop back in, I think I'm gonna take that time to tell you about the most passionate group of people I encountered in the entire weekend. And spoiler alert, it was not Magic the Gathering fans, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Gen Con. And then, of course, we do have a Proxy Forge giveaway, so stay tuned for that. All right, guys, we're back from break. Still talking about Gen Con. It was a whirlwind of people. It was a toxic deluge of people and a whirlwind of product, I think is the two. Now, the one thing, we made a half the episode in, but we haven't talking about the game of the year that debuted at Gen Con, Lorcana, Disney's Lorcana,
Right.
the quote unquote magic game ender. Um, I tried, guys. I went in to this event, and Cole knows this. I went into this event, and one of my top items was try Lorcana, try and get some product for Lorcana, check it out so we could talk about it on the podcast.
Right.
I walked in, the line for Lorcana. I want you to imagine this. It's in a hotel ballroom, so to speak. So it's in the convention hall. It snakes about half a mile through along the walls of the main expo hall out into the main like entryway, kind of foyer hallway that branches off into the expo halls,
Okay.
down out the convention center, along the length of the convention center to an adjacent parking lot where they had food trucks, and that's where the end of the Lorcana line was.
Wow.
Um, so there were people talking about 14 hours in that line.
That's
There were
incredible.
yeah, there were people that were talking about 14 hours in that line to end up being the first person to get cut off.
So you were saying that there's more people then, and then that it got cut off at 14 hours?
No, no, as in they waited for 14 hours, got to the front of the line, and they were told, "Oops, you were the first person that we ran out of product on.
Wow.
So
That's very
you and your
disappointing.
500 people behind you." Yeah, it was really disappointing. That was generally the consensus from everybody I talked to was like the overall organization was just disappointing. Now, to give them credit, they did adapt as the weekend went on. So day one, there was no real like rhyme or reason or system set up. So all these booths, you could just walk up to a booth, someone would sit there teach you about their game, you could purchase product, all that good stuff. They didn't have anything special set up for this in that sense, as far as like a queue. So Thursday, everybody rushed that booth, and there was nobody like, hey, back of the line, take a number, get behind the velvet rope, nothing like that.
Sure.
So those poor Ravensburger employees running that booth looked like World War III. You know, they're crawling on the beaches kind of situation. um, Probably about 4 o'clock or so Thursday, everybody in the vicinity gets like a push notification, or you get a notification on Twitter or however, telling you that hey, we messed up. We're going to change the direction of this for the remaining 3 days. Get in line now. So you could get in line starting at 6 p.m. Thursday to hopefully be there when the booths reopen 10 a.m. the following day, which is already like what's that, 16 hours.
If you're talking about camping overnight in a line to play Lorcana, that's a little bit insane.
Yeah, now not to play Lorcana, to purchase a starter deck. That was not a game demo. That was literally to purchase merchandise.
Remarkable.
Yeah, now there were some people I saw on Twitter did get their hands on some booster packs, stuff like that, and they were flipping or attempting to. I don't know how successful they were, but they were flipping commons for like $500. Like DM me, buy this. You know, I've got 5 copies of Ariel or whatever. Come get one that's outside my playset for $500.
Wow. Are people buying these? Is it flying off the shelves?
So my understanding is they sold through all their product. I don't know how much they brought, but they did sell through all their product at the booth because on Sunday we did manage to go to the booth when there wasn't a line. So I did it just so I could get a picture at the booth and tell everybody I made it to the booth.
Uh huh.
um, and at that point they were like, the people there look somewhere between like comatose and I had been recently bludgeoned with a baseball bat and I'm suffering a concussion. That seemed to be the general staff running the place.
Uh huh.
And we walked up and they're like, "Yeah, just come on up. If you want anything, go to the front or what, or like go to the counter." So we walked up to the counter just out of curiosity, and all they had left were like jigsaw puzzles.
Wow.
So yeah, so we did not play Lorcana. I will say I did see people play Lorcana. It looked very interesting. Um, One of the things that really stood out to me is it solves a bit of the mana flood, mana screwed element of Magic because you actually discard cards from your hand to create mana.
That's kind of
So that
cool.
yeah, so you basically draw a card. From my understanding of it, you draw a card and you can decide, am I going to play this card or do I want to discard it for resource?
Add it to your
Um,
inkwell.
yeah, so that seemed interesting. Everybody that played it seemed like they enjoyed it. I just did not want to spend the better half of my weekend standing in line with a bunch of people.
Only
Now,
to not receive a product.
yeah, now I did start a chant in the Lorcana line. I will say that was my one interaction with the Lorcana queue. So we were walking by the front of it because again, you can walk right next to the booth. You just can't go into the booth unless you're in the line.
Uh huh.
And I saw all these like shell shocked people about 12 hours into their wait, and they're right up front. So I started a chant with them of almost there, almost there. And if nothing else, it got a couple smiles from people that looked like otherwise their afternoon was getting kind of miserable.
Uh huh.
But I mean, I will say the dedication of those people looked intense because Saturday night it rained. So when we showed up to the convention hall Sunday morning, there were people outside in the line that had just pulled like a hoodie up and sat out the rain.
Wow. Rain or shine. How cold was it out there?
It wasn't that. It was like mid 70s, which was not too bad, especially when you come back here and with humidity. The first day I got back was 105, I want to say.
Uh huh.
So yeah, it was definitely nicer up there. There was a bit of overcast, so it wasn't like blazingly hot, so with direct sunlight or anything. But yeah, so that was Gen Con in a nutshell. Um, the TLDR of this whole thing is our our hobby is going strong, guys. There was people there. This was my biggest takeaway is there was a lot of people there playing games where we learned how to play Soulforge Fusion as an example, right?
Okay.
Which is like it's made by Richard Garfield who made Magic. And it's about like shuffling two decks to like two half decks together to make your deck. But we did a learn to play. We got some like tester decks to play around with, and not too like what's the word I'm trying to think of? Not like two mats over, like maybe four chairs down. They're having their world championship.
Wow.
So it was kind of cool to see stuff like that. There was a big One Piece. There was a big like Digimon TCG kind of presence. So it was kind of interesting to see a lot of those things where we take for granted. Like if you're a big Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Magic the Gathering player, you kind of take for granted the LGS support that you get. And a lot of these are like this miniature game only sees play here and maybe five other conventions. So it was kind of cool to have that like learn to play while also realizing that how good you have it with Magic the Gathering having so much support.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because you find small pockets of support for games like even like One Piece is kind of a relatively newer game. So
Mhm.
it's cool to have a place like that where you're confident everybody can get together and find some people to play with.
Yeah, and they were very cool too. I will say the Soulforge Fusion group was because when we were learning how to play, and it was sort of towards the end of the demo time. So the employee for the company that was supposedly doing the demo, he started cleaning up other demos and kind of just left Sharon and I to play our game.
Uh huh.
Um, and I think, kind of sensing that we were a little confused, a couple of the people that played in their World Championship tournament sat down next to us and weren't like directly interacting with us, but they told us like, "Hey, we're sitting down here in case you have any questions. Feel free to ask." And then they were telling us like, hey, you should get on the Discord, you should get in this. Like we don't have a lot of global support,
Uh
but
huh.
you know, if you ever want to learn how to play, you know, we have all the resources they wanted to give you right there on the spot. So they were just so excited to possibly have somebody join them.
The few and the the solid, sturdy, strong fans.
Yeah, and now I didn't try. I wanted to try One Piece, but we didn't get an opportunity to. Soul Force Fusion, I think, was kind of a cool game. I still don't fully understand it, but it seemed interesting. And we wanted to play a couple other games that we didn't have a chance to. Sharon wanted to play Queen by Midnight, which is the Critical Role like board game slash card game they're coming out with.
Okay.
And that one had demos nonstop, and all those demos were packed. But that one seemed very interesting. It's sort of a political intrigue meets kind of Disney villainous card game.
And
Um,
it's by you said Critical Role, so does it use those same characters?
it doesn't use the same characters, but it is by what's their publishing arm? Darrington Press, I think it's called.
Okay, cool.
But it's the company they founded. But what was really cool is they have a clock tower that is the central game mechanic because as you hit certain times on the clock, it activates certain effects. But the clock tower itself was also a dice tower.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that was interesting. We played a lot of like mom and pop kind of games where you could tell like the guy doing the demo also created the game and he sold maybe 20 copies in his lifetime.
So
So
they're
we
excited to talk to people and get to talk about their game that they made.
yeah, and that I think was a very interesting aspect to it. Because everybody that was there was 100% passionate about the board game, card game space. There were things we didn't even scratch the surface of, as far as there was like playtester halls if you had a brand new game. There were D&D one shots you could get into if you wanted to try that stuff out. There was all kinds of seminars. I went to a seminar actually on game manufacturing
Okay.
that was kind of interesting and also not what I expected. Like I in my mind I thought I was going to game design and I ended up going into like a literal game manufacturing seminar, as in once your game is ready, you know, here's how we can make the boards and we can make the cards and the pieces and the box and the packaging and help you with distribution and the whole nine yards.
Wow. So that's 100% literal then.
Yeah,
Manufacturing.
but it was interesting in that you kind of had every element of the space there, right? Like you had, hey, I'm legitimately trying to do this as a business, or I'm legitimately I'm just a fan, or I'm a crafts person and I just want to make dice and deck box. All those kind of striations of the community were very present, and everybody just seemed to be having one huge party out of it all.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, what an amazing spot to be, especially you being such a passionate person and such a gamer. The
Yeah,
competitiveness in the air and the ability to like look over those championships, that does sound like a blast.
yeah, and especially for me to I mean, okay, so we've been to a couple events together, and I think you know that I get not necessarily excitable, but I get very, I get a lot of joy. I think is the good phrase of it, to kind of meet people and talk to them.
Yeah.
So for me, this was great. I talked to all kinds of different artists, and not just about magic. I mean, we were talking about, you know, what's your travel plans. I think we talked during the break about one of them was telling me how they went to Italy. You know, so we were talking about just all kinds of stuff. I met a bunch of game creators that are outside of this space that I just know from talking to online, and got them to, like sign product or just say hello. And all those kind of things were really interesting. And it was nice to kind of see everybody out and about and having a good time.
That's cool. I heard rumors about a certain ice cream shop.
Yes, the buzz around the place early on was there's a Wizard of the Cones. It was a fully wrapped ice cream truck, Wizards of the Coast themed. There was Chandra ice cream. Basically, there's like 5 or 6 different types of ice cream. Everything was either D&D or Magic the Gathering related, and all the proceeds went to the Trevor Project, which was very nice. Um, and we did not get to try it.
No, that's crazy.
So on Sunday was like the hey, if at 6 o'clock we kick everybody out day
Uh huh.
because they have to clean and everything. So on Sunday, we were gonna meet, or not, we were going to. So we had plans to meet a group of other creators and do like a Commander Masters draft and kind of hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
So that we were supposed to meet up, I think at 4 o'clock was our plans for that. So at like 3 o'clock, we had wrapped up our previous like I can't even remember what it was. That's how blurry this weekend was. But at 3 o'clock, we had wrapped up like a game we were playing. There was like a couples like role playing slash board game. It was very weird. It
Okay.
was like pretend you're on your first date while you play through the board game kind of thing. Um, Sharon loved it. I could have taken it or left it. It was very convoluted to me. But we decided we're going to go get some food. So we're like, all right, we got an hour. Let's get outside to where the food trucks are, get some food. And while we're there, we're going to try the ice cream truck. So we get food. Then we go to the ice cream truck, and we're the first people to get cut off. Like, nope, line's capped right here. Sorry, sucks to be you. So we missed it by about like 2 minutes,
Uh huh.
only because we stood out of line eating our pizza.
Wow.
Also, I did talk to him for half a second though because they a lot of the questions online were, "Will we be seeing this at MagicCon Vegas?" To which I got a resounding no. So if you're at MagicCon Vegas, you're in the same boat as me, which is no ice cream.
Well, that's good to know. Don't get your hopes up if you're in Vegas.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was the weekend. There are two other little quick stories I'll run through just because I think they were funny slash interesting.
Okay.
One Saturday, WizKids fan appreciation event. Now we sort of signed up for it, sort of got invited to it. It was like a weird. It was a weird sort of. We signed up for an event ahead of time. And we signed up for WizKids because they manufacture a lot of dungeon tiles and stuff that I really like for D&D. And we were kind of like, hey, they make miniatures, they make dungeon tiles. Let's check that out. Um, we got pulled into a 45-minute presentation about hero clicks that I knew they made, but I have never played.
Now that's with
And I
miniatures, right?
yes, so I will say that if you play hero clicks, forgive me because I'm gonna butcher this description of it. So it's miniatures with a circular base at the bottom, and the base includes the stats of the characters, I believe. Now my understanding is they can move around. Essentially, you're doing combat between teams. So my understanding is they can move around, but the mechanics to how that works, I have no idea. So how you determine how they move about a table, attack range, I couldn't tell you. I don't know if it's like, hey, it moves, in inches or spaces or whatever.
Sure.
But it's Marvel and DC kind of meshed together. So they have Marvel sets, DC sets. It's been around for, I want to say, they said like 15 years at this point.
Wow.
Um, but we sit in the back. This place gets packed with people, and at first there's sort of like a they were going to do a presentation like, hey, here's our upcoming sets and product launches for 2023, 2024, get you excited, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Nobody in the place has an HDMI cable, so they can't hook their laptop into the projector in any form.
What an
So
oversight.
yeah, so they send out this one like aide to go find IT, because I guess there's a set IT thing here all weekend, but finding them is its own mini game. Um, so they send him out. He goes sprinting down the center aisle. People are cheering. They said, "Hey, it's Brian," so everyone's chanting, "Brian, Brian, Brian." As he runs out, so then there's like three people sitting up there at the front panel. One is the head of WizKids. Like, I don't know if he was the CEO or like vice president of product development or something. One was the head of marketing. I remember that, and then one was specifically the head of HeroClix. So like all the HeroClix planning and stuff like that. So it became like this weird town hall like meeting, and the like if you think the questions that get asked at Magic the Gathering panels are nerdy, these guys were like the nerds of nerds. Like if nerds push people into lockers, these are the people the nerds are pushing into lockers.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, everybody shoots their hand in the air. The VP of sales or whatever's pointing them out, and they're getting questions like, "Hey, in 2019, you guys did a Facebook survey talking about what we would prefer for future product launches. Uh, what do you think? How do you factor in Facebook survey results into your design plans?"
It's like, what?
Now, to this guy's credit, he answered them like genuinely and sincerely, but they're asking him about that. One person started asking him about like third quarter product launches from last year that this one he knew was down on sales. So like I don't even remember what it was, but let's just say it was like Blade, right? So he's like, "Hey, in the third quarter of last year, when you had the Blade trilogy set, it was low on sales. So does that impact my chances to see future Blade trilogy sets? Because I got Blade, but I didn't get Blade's mother."
Uh-huh.
And it was it was like I was sitting at a shareholder meeting, and all these people had money on the line.
Well, yeah, I'm curious if it is like a heavy collecting game, or like a lot of people are maybe just collecting rather than playing it, or if there is a lot of combat viability to Blade's mother.
Well, as you know, Blade's mother is what we consider an S tier, figure. But there is a collectible standpoint to it, as I learned later. Um, so we're sitting through this, like I said, it's like an hour. Sharon is so zoned out. She's like, "I don't know what the hell's going on here. It took a nerdy turn to the left." Now, I had like a abject kind of curiosity to it because I found their questions to just be fascinating. Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Like if a camera was pointed at me and they said, "All right, you have to ask Mark Rosewater one question," my mind would never go to, "Hey, so Commander's Master's sales numbers are looking weak compared to Modern Horizons 2. Now, does that mean that I won't see a Commander Masters 2 in the horizon? And how does that relate to Arena reviews on the App Store?" Like the weird in depth stuff. And when I say in depth, there was somebody who asked him about a spreadsheet that I guess they could access because on like page 3 of the spreadsheet, um, which was like something to do with like rebalancing the stats. But it was like, hey, on page 3 of the spreadsheet, it said that you're going to change Ghost Rider from like a 40 speed to like a 39 speed. Now, do you think that that is going to completely rebalance the entire metagame?
It's yeah, you're getting into the thick of the numbers at somewhere where people are hyped about smaller bits of information. It's difficult to digest unless you're sitting there, waiting for this opportunity. It depends on, I guess, how big the fan base is, but these are some pretty specific questions.
They weren't. Now you use the word waiting for the opportunity. So I'm going to tell you about my hero, my hero of the entire Hero Clicks franchise. So a row in front of us and like across the divide, so there was like split into two sections with a center kind of walkway.
Uh-huh.
So kind of diagonal to me. There's a middle-aged gentleman. He puts his hand up in the air with the rest of them. To be honest and to be 100% fair, he looked like he fit in with the rest of them, which was calf-high white socks, in his Reeboks with like his halfway down to the knee cargo pant, like cargo shorts. He kind of had the fit, right?
Uh-huh.
He's got his arm in the air. He gets ignored for like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. Then he shifts arms. Then he's using his arm to like one hand to support the other hand because he's losing so much blood flow. But never once does he drop his hand. About 20 minutes go by. The people around him start sticking up their hands so that when they get called on, they can go, he's got a question he's been waiting 20 minutes for.
They're avoiding this guy, or what's the deal?
No, it's just like, I think it's because of the way he was sitting kind of towards the back-ish with us. He just wasn't being noticed over the sea of other people sticking their hand in the air. So eventually, they come to him, right? Now, imagine you've sat there and you've been asked like the most nuanced questions about your game possible. Like, oh, do you think Lotus Petal would be different if it cost 1 mana instead of 0 mana? Well, what if Soul Ring was a 2 mana for 3 instead of a 1 mana for 2? Like,
Uh-huh.
there's the most like nuanced technical questions, right? So they finally point to this gentleman. And he's like, "Oh, hi. My name's Jeremy. I don't know if his name was Jeremy, but he threw out a name. And I've got a question. What is the Hero Clicks and who are Whiz Kids and what is this?" the It was like half the room died laughing and the other half of the room was completely mortified. And I was definitely on the dying laughing side. I was like, this dude is a king, a legend.
That's
So
absolutely insane that he would spend so much time waiting to ask a question. How did he even find himself in that room?
I have no idea. I mean, now, to be fair, we found ourselves in that room because our expectations for what we were walking into were completely different. So we're in this room, and so he asked this question. The panel goes, well, would somebody in the audience like to explain it to him, right? Like they're kind of like, hey, well, we'll give it up to the fans, let
Like
them
they don't
explain.
even know?
Yeah, so the quote unquote like CEO of this company is like, you know what? Hey, that's a good question. Hey, you in the front row, you want to let him know? Want to fill him in? So this lady in the front row goes, well, it's like chess but with superpowers, and once you play it, your whole world's gonna change. And this guy without missing a beat goes, oh, okay, but how do I play it? Oh, you play it by starting.
Uh, okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Your silence is my silence. He puts his hand right back down. Never gets an answer to his question. And at this point, Brian comes back in, right? He's got HDMI cables for days. Now they got to flip. Now they got to spend 10 minutes flipping through all the HDMI cables to see which one is HDMI to USB-C,
Uh
so
huh.
the computer can actually hook up. Because they sent him out to get HDMI cables, but they forgot what should be on the other end of the HDMI cable. So we go through this. Then we get to sit through about 20 minutes of Hero Clicks future product, right? Of which they're doing like weird teasers for prizes. So like they'll show you a little bit of an image, and if you guess what it is, they give you like some product.
Okay.
All these images, I was like, how the hell would I know? So they show like a little glimpse of silver, right? And my mind goes, okay, Silver Surfer.
Sure.
Zoom out, it's Ghost Rider on the Silver Surfer uh like board.
So did
It's
anybody guess it?
yeah, yeah. Not me, but other people did. And I think I saw at least three grown men weep at the Wolverine Deadpool team up they have of the two of them like like clasping hands essentially.
Okay.
Like you know that meme of Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed where they run up to the beach and then they like embrace and hug in the sand.
Yeah.
They're playing off of that meme with Deadpool and Wolverine, and they revealed it as like, hey, in 2025 you could get this figurine, and the like palpable excitement in the air was like nothing that could have been revealed by magic.
Uh-huh.
Like there were people crying, there were people like whooping and catcalling. It was interesting.
Well, I gotta say, I'm a little shocked to hear this because I don't live under a rock, and I have never heard of Hero Clicks before. Doing a little bit of preliminary research. When did this, come out of nowhere and take over as the most life changing game?
So apparently it's been out since like 2006. Now, I've heard of it before, but I like didn't realize it was really a thing to this degree. So then what happens, we end up getting product, right? So they're leaving, so they start giving us like their version of booster packs, which are these long rectangular cubes or like tubes that have I guess five figurines within them.
Okay.
I still haven't opened them, by the way. They're slowly sitting in my living room. So we end up getting like, well, I think we got okay. So we got two of them, and then we got two miniature figurines of Strahd, from D&D that they were also giving out,
That's pretty
and
cool.
then we traded in a Strahd because they only had so many Strahds, but they had so many booster packs. So they started offering people trades on the floor. Like the actual company was offering to trade you back the merchandise they just gave you for free.
So what'd you
So,
do?
we kept one Strahd and we traded because I was like, what do I need two Strahds for? So I traded one Strahd back for another booster pack because I figure I don't know how this game works, but if it's like Magic, having more booster packs probably gets me closer to playing the game, right?
Yeah.
Now the my one takeaway from the whole like slideshow presentation stuff was that they have starter kits coming out next year, and in the starter kit there are five um like characters, right? And there's like a DC starter kit, a Marvel starter kit. Each one has five different characters. So my takeaway was like, okay, I must need five characters to like make a deck, I guess for lack of a better word, or like a team.
Sure.
So the next day, Sunday, we go out to the expo floor. I find the WizKids booth. I walk up to one of the people working it, and I just go, "Hey, I've got these booster packs. I don't really know, like, haven't opened them. Don't really know what I'm looking at. But could you tell me if I open these three booster packs, which have five apiece, so I've got 15 figurines, is that enough for me to start playing the game?
Uh huh.
Like, even if I blindly play the game, like, is this enough? I got roped into the longest discussion of my life about, well, yes and no. Like, yes, it is technically enough, but no, you should get a starter pack because the starter pack comes with like power up cards and a rule book and all this other stuff, right? But I guess each figurine comes with like its own little miniature book of powers. So
Okay.
you've got like your own brochure for each figure. But he then tells me the same thing that lady told this guy in the room, which was, and when you start to learn, like you'll forget every other game you've ever played. This will become your life. You'll be so swept up in hero clicks that like, you'll forget your mother's birthday. You won't eat for days. Who needs sleep when you've got hero clicks?
So when I have to assume then you're keeping those boxes closed, right? I can't lose you to hero clicks like this.
what what's crazy is he also told me like four times that he doesn't work there. And I'm like, aren't you're at the booth, man? You're wearing the shirt. And he goes, oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm here as a volunteer because they gave me a shirt. I'm like, so you volunteered your 4 days because they gave you a T-shirt that says Whiz Kids on it? Yep, 100%.
Uh huh.
Yeah. So like I don't know how to take it, man. I'm like, have I unearthed a cult? What is this?
Yeah, I don't know about hero clicks, but if it's anywhere near as good as they say it is, I would recommend you stay away.
Yeah, because I'm like, I kind of want to try it, but the other side of it is like, as you know from Magic, you can only have so many Magic like hobbies because the money sink becomes so great that if I have to start doing chases of the latest Spider-Man to come out, there's no way.
Right.
And also, you brought up them being collectibles. So he then showed me like a display case they had over there, and yes, you can buy like scenes, like you can buy memes, I should say. So they've got like one figurine that's just the Spider-Man pointing at each other,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
they've got you can get the Robin and Batman from Batman backhanding Robin.
So they're playing into the
Yeah,
memes
they're
here.
they're very aware, and the guy's like, oh, but if you get the meme ones, they're not as good competitively. Um, but you can always tell people at the table that like if you get the backhanding Batman, you can tell him that his powers that you can backhand them.
All right, that's assault.
So that was probably the other weirdest thing that happened to me there. Um, I got one other one for you that I think takes the cake, and then we'll hop into question of the week, card of the week, all that good stuff. Um, Sunday night. So Sunday night, after we don't get our ice cream, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
We go to, and I think this is a good spot to kind of end the weekend. One, because it's the end of Sunday, which is the last day. And also, at the front, I told you about how weird the Ubers were, right?
Yeah.
But on the back end, I'm going to tell you about why you should get in that weird Uber. So, we meet up with a couple other creators. We do like our draft. I won, by the way. I won with a nice little Urza, Gonti, blue black artifact shenanigan deck.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it was a lot of fun. I will say Sharon has the better drafting luck, but she didn't know what to put in her deck. So she got Fierce Guardianship. She got a Yuriko. Um, she got a full art Vandal Blast. none of which made it into the actual deck she built.
Hey, 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 hey! Shouldn't you be saving this for next week?
Yeah, well, next week we're going to be talking about the magic aspect, or Friday rather. We're going to talk about the magic aspect. Um, but whatever. So we have a draft. We have a lot of fun. Um, Cole knows what's up. I'm not going to clout chase, but it was a lot of fun meeting some of these people that I've only talked to online. Um, but after we draft, we all kind of go like, "Hey, let's go have some dinner, right?" Like, so we all decide to go to dinner. Now, the way the convention center set up is you have the convention center, and then connected to the convention center is a mall. Weirdly enough, and then there's like some downtowny restaurants, but it's all within like 5 minutes of each other, so you can walk pretty reasonably to everything.
Okay.
So we decide, hey, we're gonna go to Buca de Beppo, which is not like a Florida chain, but it's a chain for like family style Italian food. Um, so we decide, hey, we're just gonna walk over there from where the hotel lobby that we had been drafting at. We're gonna walk over. We start walking down the road. Like I said, it's like 5 minutes. Um, one of like one of the other members of our group is up front, kind of like leading the way with their GPS. And you start hearing these like weird tire screechings from around the corner, but they're like I don't know how to describe it. Like, okay, if you open a soda bottle, right, and there's like the release of carbonation, like that
Uh
kind of
huh.
noise, it's like that more so than actual screeching. So we turn the corner and there's a series of like five kids, like teenagers that are on electric scooters, like the rentable electric scooters, and they're trying to drift them around corners,
Uh huh.
which I don't know if you've ever been an electric scooter. I mean, it barely takes a corner, let alone drifting in it.
Yeah.
So, like, all right, whatever, kids will be kids. We're pushing on, right? Make it a couple more blocks, and suddenly you hear like these loud cracking noises from
Oh
behind us.
no.
Like, just, I mean, like snapping and cracking, right?
Uh huh.
And they're getting closer. And then is it intermingled with this cracking noises is like a chime. So you hear like, what? Like, crack, bling, 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 crack, bling, 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 right? Turn around. There is a like shirt off, just half naked guy. Like he's barefoot, no shirt on. He's literally just wearing like shorts, pedaling down the middle of the road with on a bicycle. Like he's just blinging his bicycle bell, and
Uh
he
huh.
has a full whip in his hand. Not, when I say full whip, I don't mean like I don't know. I don't mean like, hey, let's get fun in the bedroom. I mean like he's Indiana Jones.
He's Indiana
Like,
Jones up on this piece.
yeah, dragging it behind him. And now, he's not like coming at us or anything. He's just pedaling past us so that he can go to the near street corner and talk to his homeless compatriot that's hanging out there.
Uh huh.
And then as we're waiting for the crosswalk, they're on the other side, like the other side of the street, just having a pleasant conversation while this guy just intermittently cracks his whip on like the cobblestone street. Like, how's the weather? Oh, it's pretty good. Whatcha?
That well, was he good? Was he good with the whip?
I mean, he was cracking it fine, But and this is before we get to the restaurant, by the way.
Uh
We
huh.
get to the restaurant, uh, and first off, I've never been to a Buca de Beppo. I don't know if you have either.
I haven't.
Okay, so I don't know if this is standard for this restaurant or if this is just like happenstance. We walk in through the entrance into the kitchen. Like, we literally walk in and we're at the line for the kitchen.
Okay.
And we're looking at each other and we're like, oh, did I go in the wrong way? So we start to turn around when somebody, like one of the wait staff there goes, no, no, you're coming the right way. This is the right entrance. So we proceed to get to the hostess stand. You have to go through the kitchen, like directly through the kitchen, past the manager's office, past all the billboards on the side of the wall that say things like, remember to wash your hands. You can only give out X number of napkins per customer. Like, remember to push the specials. Literally, you're in the kitchen.
Uh huh.
Um, we get sat. It's 1,000 freaking degrees. One, because we walked through the kitchen. Two, their AC's out.
Oh, that's awful.
So then we now the food was pretty good. It was like a big family style Italian food. So we had like garlic bread and calamari and lasagna and the whole 9 yards. You know, everybody ate their fill, had a good time. The entire wall, all the walls are lined with like pinup girls from the 1940s
Okay.
combined. Like it's half that, and then the other half is like nuns in bumper cars.
Wow.
Like
That's
80-year-old nun in a bumper car in an amusement park, black and white, 8x10, framed on the wall.
a perfect juxtaposition.
Yeah, so that was our final evening. Then we made it. We left. We all kind of like went our separate ways and made it back to the hotel in one piece. Yeah, that was Gen Con.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a wow. Oh, I will say that was the other thing that happened at the restaurant. So we're sitting there, and the table next to us recognized not me, but recognized a couple of people that we were eating with, and but we're confusing what channel they were on.
Uh huh.
So every now and then, this table next to us would keep saying really loudly comments about the command zone in like game nights.
Thinking that they were like
They
trying to
were like
hint it.
Josh Lee Kwai and
Uh huh. Uh huh.
yeah, and Jimmy Wong. Yeah, it just kept going like, yeah, yeah. I watch game nights all the time, and then they'd like pause and stare at him.
Wow. That's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, and then we like I said we made it back to the hotel in one piece, and that was Gen Con. I think to summarize it, it was a lot of interesting experiences. It was a lot of fun though. At the end of the day, I probably left with like 30 games, of which I will play 10 of them maybe, but a
Uh huh.
wide variety of games. Um, my desk looks like a hot mess because I've got Commander's draft stuff, I've got Lotus pedals, I've got signed tokens, the whole 9 yards. So I'm still sort of reorganizing from it all. Um, but that being said, guys, I think that just about gets us to the end of the episode. So, question of the week, card of the week, and we're gonna get on out of here.
Let's do
So,
it.
question of the week. This is the big moment. So we put out on Twitter this weekend as part of our fundraiser that we're doing with Proxy Forge. We asked you guys to leave us a question of the week, and that's how we're selecting the winner of our set. So there's going to be two winners, you guys. One from this episode and one from the episode on Friday. So if you don't hear your question now, don't fret. There's still another chance. Um, the question of the week for this week, or I'm sorry, for this episode rather, comes to us from Eric. So Eric, first off, congratulations. Thank you for the support. You should be seeing a DM where I'll be asking for your shipping information, all that stuff, so we can get those proxies sent out to you.
All
But
right.
Eric would like to know, how do you feel about, quote, just rule zero, or quote, it dies to removal, as the general answer we hear for everything the community at large feels to be unhealthy for the format. Um, so I clarified the question a little bit because it was kind of phrased a little odd. So what he's asking is, if somebody were to say, I don't like Draenith Magistrate, or I don't like Golos, or whatever the issue is that you think is bad for the format, there tends to be a lot of responses out there that are like, well, just rule zero that nobody can run Draenith, or it dies to removal, so run more removal. Sort of like get good.
Yeah. Doomblade is often cited as, oh, it dies to Doomblade. It dies to Doomblade.
Yeah. So how do you feel about, I guess, that response in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a definitely a blanket answer because you can say it to pretty much every problem in EDH. Like, oh, if you rule zero it with your table mates, you could typically get over any problem. Or oh, like it's not that bad; it dies to removal. Well, Draenith Magistrate especially is a good example because it's like sometimes if you're in some sort of like Uba mask Draneth Magistrate lock, it doesn't just die to removal, or like you're not going to be able to play the removal. I think it's important to recognize that although some things yes, are vulnerable to removal, which everybody should have in their deck. There's also the things that just come across as like oppressive in the context. If you're like turboing out a Toxrill, even though yes, it would die to a Swords to Plowshares, if you have the mana to turbo out a Toxrill, I imagine you probably have a few blue mana open to counterspell my swords. It's not a great answer.
Yeah, it really isn't. And I kind of thought about it in this sense, right? Like, I definitely run more removal than I would say like an average player. So my decks typically, if I build them, like assuming they're not a precon, but something I actually build, I'm usually somewhere in the 15 to 20 range on removal. So I do think yes, people should run more removal. Like, hands down, any more removal, any more interactions, great. But I don't think that that's the real answer. Because if it's an unfun experience, like, and now Draenith is more my example than his, because it's sort of like a common one you would hear online.
Uh-huh.
But if you're looking at Draenith or a Toxrill or something like that, and it's not fun for you, I mean, me just telling you, well, run Swords to Plowshares doesn't really help you. It's still an unfun situation you find yourself in. Um, I think Rule Zero does get around a lot of that. It's not going to get around everything perfectly because, if you go to an LGS and somebody's like, oh, Toxrill's my commander, your hands might be a little bit more tied depending on if they brought other decks, or, if you know them or not, and how willing they are to kind of work with you on the Rule Zero bit. But I think at home games, you should be able to manage most of it by having that conversation.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like, yes, it's a sucky response to get, which is it dies to removal, but or just tell people you don't want to play against it. But it also does kind of hold true, I think, a little bit. Just like anything else, delivery is half the battle in communication.
Definitely.
But Eric, thanks again. Like I said, we'll reach out if you left a question as well. Like I said, there was a lot of good ones. I think as of us recording this, I'm looking at it right now. There was over 3,600 people that looked at this, and we've gotten like dozens and dozens of responses. So there's definitely a lot of questions out there. If you did not hear your question, do not despair, for we are going to be doing one other giveaway on this before the pre-orders close. And again, if you want to support Proxy Forge and what they're trying to do and raise money for the Game Odyssey, Go to proxyforge.com now. Once again, the pre-orders for that end on the 20th, just so they can get them to their printers in time. But if you use our code on any of the product out there, and there's a lot of good ones. There's Commander staple sets that have things like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Smothering Tithe, etc., etc. There's ones split by color, all that good stuff. Feel free to use the code on any of it. It's ERCAST, all one word. Save yourself 20%, and the podcast will match some of the proceeds as well towards this good cause. But Cole, card of the week.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Cory. The card of the week this week is Mirkwood Bats. That's right. Mirkwood Bats is a 4-cost bat from the Lord of the Rings set with flying, and whenever you create or sacrifice a token, you're going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. This is a just absolutely downright busted effect when paired with anything like Marionette Master or even like a Mayhem
Treasure
Devil.
effects.
And yeah, once you're pumping out those treasures, you're going to watch your opponent's life totals slowly go bye-bye.
Now,
it's an
you want to know my favorite thing about Mirkwood Bats is?
What's that?
Dies to removal.
Oh, well, it doesn't die to Doomblade. It's worth stating it does not die to Doomblade.
Hey, but I don't need it to die to Doomblade if I just rule 0 it out.
Mirkwood Bats has found a lot of success in the last couple of weeks that I've been playing it, and every deck that I've put it in, it just puts in work. Dihada, the Binder of Wills, that -4 is now dealing potentially 24 damage to the whole table. So it's well, I mean, that's total. I mean, it's 8 damage to each opponent, but 24 damage for 1 Planeswalker activation. It's a sweet card.
Oh yeah, I'm working on a deck for Sharon that is a Yara First Electhwain, and I went ahead and put that in there because it makes so many like black token creatures that it's like just incidentally free damage.
Absolutely, that's an easy include.
All right, well, great card of the week, great question of the week. But I think that wraps up today's episode. Thank you for making it to the very end. I know this was a bit of a long one, but hopefully it was somewhat insightful, or you join us at Gen Con next year. But if you want to reach out to us in any way, shape, or form, you can find Cole online on all the socials, all those good places at loveandmana.mtg. You can find me at Sleevecard, or you can reach out to the pod at any time at ErCastPod or contact.urcast@gmail.com. And do all that good stuff while we got you here. If you're on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe, bell, notifications, all the good stuff. You're on Spotify, drop a good review. It all helps out, and we appreciate it. But that being said, guys, have yourselves a great week and have yourselves a magical Friday. But we are getting out of here.
See you on Friday.